Some would say we had a viral moment. I would say we've been building momentum for the last 4 years. And as we look to what's next, I think it really is about showing Stanley off as a lifestyle brand. But then probably most importantly is staying connected to culture. We have partnerships with world-class athletes, world-class entertainers, the best of the best in brands.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Marketing Vanguard podcast. I'm Jenny Rooney with Adweek, coming to you straight from Las Vegas at Adweek House. We're here during a week that's known for its focus on all things commerce and shopping. And I am thrilled to be joined by a very special guest, Matt Navarro. You're the president of Stanley. Thanks so much for joining me.
Nice to meet you and some of the team backstage, and we're excited about this week.
Tell me why you're here. Let's start there. Is this your first time coming out for Shop Talk Week?
I've been to Shop Talk in the past with some other brands. I think first it's an incredible opportunity to just engage with really bright people and share ideas, and I think there's a great amount of creativity in the air in Vegas, and to have our team in that environment is important. And then I think second, we meet with a lot of partners and vendors, of course, to talk about what's next, talk about what's coming. And then last, I would say, tell our story. To talk with folks like yourself and tell that story is important to us.
You're one of the hottest brands out there and have been. I'm going to see if I can get some news out of you.
We'll see.
I'll give it a shot. Look, let's start with you because you are not new to Stanley. In fact, you've been there for what? About the past 5
Almost
years,
5, yep.
Right? In what kinds of role or roles?
Yeah, so I started leading commercial for the brand basically in 2020, hired in the middle of COVID, so met no one on the team. I had been with Amer Sports for almost 20 years. It was a big leap of faith, and I just loved the heritage of the brand. I think I was fortunate to be part of a small group of people who saw where we had been, but also what the potential of Stanley was in the future. And so that really motivated me to join to see what could be next. To be honest, I thought it would be a 2 or 3 year journey. We'd reinvigorate this 100-year-old brand and maybe I'd move on to do what's next. Fortunately, it's just been a great ride, and I'm now just really humbled to be able to lead our bear force across the world, as we call them.
Your what force?
Bear Force. So our logo is a bear. So we call our workforce the Bear Force.
I love that. I love that. Well, we were talking about Grateful Dead a minute ago.
Yeah,
I'm a Dead fan, and the dancing bear is a thing. So like that got into my head too. Anyway,
similar.
It'd be a very fun collab there. But you've also been at Wilson Sporting. Is that correct?
So I was with Amer Sports, who's now owned by Anta. Owned Wilson Sporting Goods, Louisville Slugger. Started in like the team sports world. Then in 2014, 2015, moved over to the outdoor business with them. Moved me out to Utah, where my family is now, which has been a great adventure for us personally, too. So I've been super fortunate to work with just great brands and really talented people.
I mean, it's so germane to the Stanley brand, right? The outdoor, the sustainability pieces. So it's a great coming together for you personally with a lot of what the brand stands for. So you come into the president role a year ago, correct?
Right at a year, yep.
So yeah, congratulations on that, absolutely. And yes, now you're holding the mantle, frankly, for the company moving forward. Talk a little bit about the inflection point that you feel like the company is at. And as you step into this role, how do you regard where the brand has been, but also how you needed to challenge yourself to make sure you were going to be the right person for the job in this moment in time?
You know, we're a 100-year-old heritage brand, and we've stayed really nimble. Over the last 100 years, we have what we refer to as eras. From 1913 to about the 1960s, Stanley helped people go to work. They took their food and beverage to job sites and work all across the country. And then as quick service food became readily available, the pivot was to move and help people get outside and outdoors. And we spent really the 1960s through about 2020, 2019, helping people enjoy the great outdoors and go camping and fishing and hiking and things of that nature. And then 2020 was a really big inflection point where we thought there was even more potential for the brand. And we had this opportunity to introduce through color, through material, through finish, through innovation, to a whole new audience. And so as we were talking earlier, your daughter who's a Gen Zer and a more female audience, we were able to be a disruptor in that hydration space. And so 2020 to now has really been about hydration and helping people outside. And then I would say, I don't know that I was prepared for this role, but the responsibility that I feel is really not for the next year or two, but to make sure for the next 10, 20, 30 years, we're making the right decisions for this brand. And we believe that is giving people the opportunity to use our product within more places within their life. When you think about car, the yoga studio, carpools, soccer game, your fitness, sitting at work, on the field, we want to serve a product that works in all those use cases. So that's really what we're looking to, of like making sure, I would call future-proofing the brand through adjacencies and staying connected to consumers, staying connected to culture, making sure we're giving the consumer what they want.
I love that you said that you're thinking about like you want to do what's right in the next 1-2 years, but obviously making sure that you're leaving a lasting impact. I mean, in this podcast, I interview CMOs and CEOs, and it is about leadership. It is about decisions you make. It's about the choices, because being a C-suite leader, you are taking action at every turn that's going to change the trajectory of the brand and business. So I love that you allude to that, because, you have to be cognizant of the bigger picture, even as you're thinking about, obviously, and CMOs are the ones who talk about the balancing short wins with long-term success. But look, I mean, it's a competitive category, and the virality of brands, especially among consumer audiences like my daughter's, and she's 16, is a thing. And it's absolutely something that you have to figure out how to continue to power, nurture. There's funny memes on TikTok and Instagram of all the girls, all the Stanley Cups lined up as they're all out in the gym doing their gymnastics. And it is a thing. So how do you think about harnessing that force that is the virality around the brand as you move forward?
Yeah, I think some would say we had a viral moment. I would say we've been building momentum for the last 4 years. And as we look to what's next, I think it really is about showing Stanley off as a lifestyle brand. But then probably most importantly is staying connected to culture. We have partnerships with world-class athletes, world-class entertainers, the best of the best in brands, from Lionel Messi to Love Shack Fancy to Olivia Rodrigo. And I know you want to pull some other ones out of me. There's more coming in Q1 and Q2 of 2025 also. And so I talk to our team a lot about what keeps me up at night. What keeps me up at night is if we are not relevant with young consumers and really at the heart of culture.
What an awesome, exciting challenge to take on, because what I'm hearing from you is now you're at that place where you can actually positioning the brand through the adjacencies, through the messaging, through the storytelling around, this is a brand that's deeply woven into your lifestyle, right? That's not going anywhere, and kind of getting your consumers to feel about it as being embedded in their lives. That's a huge opportunity.
From day one, what I found and what we found is everyone has an emotional connection to our brand. Now, prior to 2019, they might not have heard about us or from us for about 25 years. So what we revitalized through being a disruptor in the space, through really just, like I said, that connection to culture, along with being rooted in sustainability, and those things aren't going away. So now it's finding ways to meet more consumers. We think there's white space. We were disruptor in hydration in 2020, and we think there's places like mobility and storage, wearable water, that you're seeing real innovation from us, where we think there's white space for our brand.
You have a main stage speaking moment. Are you going to break news here?
No news here.
But it's going to be sharing the story of the pivots that you've made.
Yeah, topic tomorrow is pivots. So we'll talk a little bit about just our history and sort of walk through those eras. And then a little more detail around where we're headed in the next 18 to 24 months. No major announcements yet.
So as you're thinking about these adjacencies, and I'm hearing that as it could also be construed as collaborations, right? And we see a lot of brands that think about, like, you mentioned some of them. How are you selecting the brands or the celebrities or the influencers or anybody else who you think about collaborating with? What's the exercise you need to go through to make sure that you're pairing your beloved brand with something that is going to either carry it further or be completely aligned in terms of the target you're trying to reach?
It's a really good question. It's also probably shifted over the last 4 or 5 years. Being the leader in the space, especially in hydration, we want to work with the best of best. So I think what you'll see from us and what you have seen are people who are truly at the pinnacle of their game. I think the second thing that maybe people don't think about is authenticity. People have a connection to our brand. Lionel Messi is maybe the greatest example of that. Yes, he's the greatest soccer player of all time. Yes, he has 500 million followers or whatever he has on Instagram, but he also has used Stanley since he was 8 years old and drinking an Argentinian beverage called mate to today, where he's using it playing for Inter Miami. And then I think last is making sure that it's really connected to fashion, style, and trend. Again, driving that relevance. Love Shack Fancy is a great example there. There's no a brand right now that's like more in tune with fashion and the consumer. We've become from utility to really a cultural icon, right? Is what we talk about. Is there's a lot of cups out there. People want the brand. They want that innovation. They want connection to fashion trend. And they want that commitment to sustainability, which has been part of our ethos for 100 years, and it will be for the next 100 years.
Well, and I want to come back to the sustainability piece, but yeah, I mean, it's not unlike any accessory. You're signaling something, right? When you are carrying it, it's a choice that people make. They have choices, and that does get to the sustainability piece, because if that is so core, I feel like sustainability, certainly in marketing circles, it has had a moment a few years ago, right, where like sustainability was a big focus. I feel like in recent years, it's perhaps not in a good way, taken a bit of a backseat to some other priorities, certainly around just growth, although it should never have been thought about as something that's divorced from growth. It is the thing that can drive growth, but sustainability isn't going away as a consumer priority. And it feels like if you can get that right in a way that's totally, like I said, nuanced, clear, and sort of immediately recognizable, pushing that forward. So how do you think specifically around the sustainability piece?
Yeah, I mean, we've spent a lot of time recently. Actually, we had our top 100 leaders together a couple weeks ago working on vision, mission, values. I wouldn't say it was new, but it was a refresh. And what sits at the foundation of that is our Built for Life promise. And what that means to us is better business, better life, better world. So it's everything from responsible manufacturing to it creating a more sustainable, less disposable life and world. And yeah, I mean, consumers care, which is helpful for business. But frankly, it's just the right thing to do. We were rooted in sustainability before sustainability was cool, is what we've said. And there's been brands who have been in and out of that space. We're in it. It'll always be the foundation of the brand. It's something we're incredibly proud of. I think it's the reason a lot of people are fans, but I also think it's a big reason why people want to come work for us, because they're a part of something that's bigger than themselves,
Sure.
which is really cool.
Well, that is, I mean, the talent brand piece is a real thing. There's a lot of different options for people as far as where they want to work and where they want to commit their time. Let's move now to shifting gears a little bit. Your thoughts on marketing. You know, it's funny, as I said, I do talk to a lot of CMOs or people with that equivalent title. And the running narrative is my CEO, my president doesn't understand me, doesn't value me, doesn't value marketing as a growth driver. It's a cost center, not an investment. So, Matt, your thoughts on that?
Man, such a big topic. I had a CEO who's sort of a coach mentor to me say that every CEO says they'd like to cut half their marketing. They're not sure which half to cut, which I think is sometimes how we feel. I think I've been able to surround myself with really strong marketers with really good experience at brands like Nike, Adidas, Allbirds, and many more, Amazon. So that experience, I think, is really helpful. What people have seen that's worked, and maybe more importantly, what hasn't worked. I think we also have to commit and invest in creating deeper connections with consumers. That's what I think marketing is. So if I had to describe it, it's like, how are we connecting with our consumer? And then last is, how are we measuring success, of course. So as an operator, in my background is, how are we measuring that connection, which is like traffic, conversion, AOV, all the marketing KPIs. But I think really, like, is it important? It's our biggest investment in driving relevance. So we're using a lot of different tactics in a lot of different places. I think we certainly changed the game in our space around social and influencer marketing and really being digitally led. I think now we're even looking more to invest in media, out of home, and what I would say have a more 360 approach to our marketing view. It's also very different by market. So what we're doing in North America today, which is pretty mature, very different than what we're doing in China, Japan, Europe. And when I talk about like diversifying, we're certainly diversifying product portfolio, as we talked about, looking for adjacencies and extensions. And we're also seeing really strong growth in Europe and Asia in particular. So hydration use case, the connection to North American culture, and wanting things that are also very connected to their fashion are all three things we see that are winning in other parts of the world.
Sustainability?
And of course, the sustainability promise, sure.
Back to what we were saying before, also, CMOs are always like to talk about, you know, my CEO doesn't understand me. And what's one thing that CMOs like to say that you wish CEOs and presidents knew better about me? I'm going to flip that around. What's the thing about being a president of a company that you want them to understand? Is that maybe if understanding will explain some of the deadlock and the inability to, you're working under such extraordinary pressures. And
yeah, I think the more we're taken along in the process, are part of the process, the more that helps us really have insight into the plan and the strategy. I think sometimes, you know, maybe we're brought into that process too late. I would say it vice versa too. And the reason I say that is because I have found if I bring my team or our teams along earlier in the process, one, it helps them. They can give input and have a really strong view. And it ultimately helps me make a better decision as a leader. So I think if senior leaders, no matter the function, thought a little bit more about that process, I think it might help.
So well said and super interesting. I mean, I think it's hard when people feel like they want to win a territory, right? And be able to kind of show up as I've got this in hand and then share it with you. But truly what you're saying is bring me in.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is a little bit more like leadership stuff. You mentioned how many decisions I have to make. In a perfect world, I make zero. Because what I believe is if I have a strong team around me, really dedicated, passionate, smart leaders, powered to make decisions and support me in all the areas that I'm weak in, that's a high-performing leadership team. The only decisions I have to make are the few ties a year and big decisions or maybe approval on a big budget item, but it's really very few. And I think the best CEOs would tell you that. I think the best CEOs and presidents say they actually don't make a ton of day-to-day decisions. They're really making big strategic or personnel or structure strategy decisions.
I could see CMOs being reticent then
Really.
bring you into the process because they want to be the ones who can go to you and say, I have it in hand, no worries, here's the thing. So there's a delicate balance there.
I think the other delicate balance there is informing versus asking.
Sure.
And so that consultative relationship with senior leaders, I just think is important. And the dialogue and the communication are really important.
This is the stuff, guys. Like, this is the good stuff. This is very fascinating. I mean, I geek out on this because I do think that there's a lot that people are struggling with on this point, and it is very nuanced.
Yeah, and I mean, I would say it out loud, like, I'm not a marketer. It's not how I was brought up. Do I have some experience? Do I have some point of views? Do I have some expertise? Of course, just being around business. But I need really bright, brilliant marketers to have really strong point of views, have a great idea around strategy, build a structure to support them, and then tell me this is what we need to do and bring us along in the process, I think is really where that works best.
So what's next? What's on the horizon? What can we expect to see?
Yeah, so we have a really exciting 2025 happening. There'll be 3 or 4 pretty major announcements on collaborations, let's call it in the next 60 to 90 days. So we're really excited about partnerships in the sports space. Some you've already seen from us. Additional partnerships in the entertainment and music area. Continued innovation and stronghold in hydration. Then very clear intentional purpose into mobility and storage, soft coolers, wearable water, all spaces where we think, again, there's white space and opportunity for disruption. We have strong partners around the world. We believe direct-to-consumer is the most intimate, direct, and curated relationship we have with consumers, so that's also really important to us. I want our team to follow the consumer. I want us to be really purposeful about who the Stanley consumer is, then identify who are the brands they like and wearing and using, and then where are they shopping. And then those are the places where we have to have strategic partnerships, where we have to have the right assortment, where we have to serve them a curated assortment for their life.
Great point. And I'm going to have to end it there. But Matt, thank you so much.
So fun. It was great to meet you.
And it's great to meet you as well. And I would love to continue conversation with you and follow the story, the Stanley story, and see what comes next. So thanks so much.
Absolutely. Pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Marketing Vanguard, part of the Adweek Podcast Network and Acast Creator Network. You can listen and subscribe to all of Adweek's podcasts by visiting adweek.com/podcasts. Stay updated on all things Adweek Podcast Network by following us on Twitter at Adweek Podcasts. And if you have a question or suggestion for the show, send us an email at podcast@adweek.com. Thanks for listening.